Your dog doesn't need to be comfortable being touched by children.
Yeah.
Like, that's not something that's...
say no. You control that.
Yeah.
Hey.
Welcome back, guys.
Hello, everybody.
We were thinking of talking about reasons you should train your dog that maybe aren't like the original or the most common things that you would think of.
Practical use of
Yes.
training your dog.
Yes. A personal experience recently that I've gone through with my oldest dog is how much easier it's made the transition into having like a senior dog, him being trained and tolerant of a lot of things, because he's had to go to a lot of vet visits now and been handled and poked and prod and all those kinds of things. And when he was younger, I mean, he was not tolerant of handling or grooming or anything like that. And so that's something we worked really heavily on. And now as like a senior dog, I can't imagine, like, I could have spent the majority of his life avoiding those things and gotten away with it.
Yeah.
But imagine like now he's old, in pain,
Super stressed out.
and then on top of that, more stress because he's terrible at the vet, not good with handling, and it would have just been a nightmare.
Yeah.
So like something like that for him, I see the really big value in it. Even just like now that he's not as stable and his mobility isn't as good, like I need to keep the hair on his feet trimmed short. I need to be able to trim his toenails short so that he's not slippery. So like those things. He can only wear harnesses now. And I even know a lot of clients that are like, yeah, I can't even put collars on and off or harnesses on or, you know, stuff like that. So even something as
muzzles.
big as that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has to ride in a wagon
Yeah.
when we go on walks. So him being comfortable, like sitting in something that's moving and feeling confident with that. Like even my husband, when I did it with him the first time, he was surprised by how well he did. He's like, he doesn't care at all. He just sits in there or lays down. And I was like, well, when he was a puppy, I did a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I like had him on a lot of different surfaces and mobile things. And I had a client actually at one point that her Bernese Mountain Dog knew how to pull carts.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a hilarious video out there somewhere in the ether of this Bernese Mountain Dog pulling cash in a cart.
Oh,
That's pretty funny.
Thing. But yeah, so just seeing him directly with all of those things, and how much stress has been avoided by taking the time and just preparing him for that stuff has been pretty cool.
yeah. It's like probably feels good that you accomplished everything, so he doesn't have to have like a stressful end of life where you're scrambling and trying to make him comfortable doing this or that.
Yeah.
It's hard when your dog gets old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things too, like why you're bringing it up now though, is that it wasn't something that when you were training him, like, oh, thank God I won't have to deal with this, like when I have to get you in a wagon and stuff like that. It's just like you can think back on it now and be like, oh, thank God I did do it because this makes it so much easier.
Yeah, because that wasn't like an original like thought.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah, because
now
when
that I'm
you have a puppy, you don't think
experiencing
about them
Yeah.
getting old and
No.
slowing down and all that stuff.
And then it happens, and then you start
Yeah.
to see your dog's face get gray.
Yeah.
And then they can't get up the stairs, and you're like,
Well, and then even to the point of like, you know, yes, we can put a dog under for vet visits and nail trims and stuff like that. But when they start getting older, it starts getting way too dangerous. And so that's where we see even a lot of dogs here that come in that are a little bit older and their nails are like starting to curl or whatever, you know, and their hair's really long and stuff. So it's definitely something that, I think a lot of people don't consider.
Well, and even like, you know, with him, he can't do stairs anymore, like going up and down stairs, because he falls. So like even something as simple as like, I was at my in-laws the other day and they have a downstairs area, and I was going to walk downstairs to go grab my husband or whatever who's fishing outside, and Cash like came around and was about to go down the stairs with me, and I told him no, and I told him to wait, and he literally just waited at the top of the steps
Yeah.
while I went down, and I got them, and I come back up. So even like just simple commands
Yeah,
and training
practical
like that,
things.
like practical stuff, where it's like if he didn't know commands and he didn't understand that stuff, then how am I supposed to do that without him following me down the
Right.
stairs? And
He would have maybe
falling and-
waited for you to go till you were out of sight, and then
Yeah.
he'd be like, "All right, time to go."
Yeah,
You know?
You just
exactly.
hear crashing.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, yes.
And he's already got a weak neck, so
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So yeah, it's been, and he's my first dog that's a senior as like an adult. And so
that you're like fully responsible
yeah,
for.
exactly. And like I got him when I was 19. And so other than like Maggot, my little decrepit Chihuahua dog that I adopted as a senior, that was a little bit different because I only had her as a senior. But Cash is my first like from puppy all the way to senior of my own. So yeah, I never thought when I had him as a puppy like, oh man, I need to prepare him for when he's old. It was just like, this is a big problem and I need to get this under control. Instinctively, I knew it was a problem and that I couldn't just avoid these things forever.
Yeah.
But it's definitely paying off like in a different way than I ever anticipated.
Yeah. Yeah. So you must be like happy, like seeing everything come together and like not having to worry about all of these little details.
Yeah, definitely. And like even with Lumos, like him having kidney disease and him having to get like blood work done more regularly and stuff like that. And he literally has to get blood work done from his neck because for whatever reason they can never get it from his legs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's had to be tolerant of vets and vet techs literally right in his face, shoving needles in him and everything. And so all of the hard work I put into him, I couldn't imagine if, you know, I discover, okay, he has kidney disease. So now he has to go to the vet so much more frequently than he ever had to. And on top of that, he's like aggressive and can't be handled and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely paying off for them as they're getting older.
Yeah. It's sad, you know. I have a couple of seniors, so I've worked extensively with Nelson, who like I've talked about Nelson and his badass days a lot, and I'm really happy that we worked him through those things, and I'm fully able and willing to like muzzle him, and he's muzzle trained for those times he needs his glands expressed or if
His
he
little
has to
tiny
get
muzzle that I
yes. And that has really helped too because I know that he doesn't have a lot of teeth, but he can hook you pretty good when he does have one. And the muzzle just allows me to feel a little bit more comfortable with the vet tech, like because even if you're like, don't get in his face because he's a little dog, they're like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, please stop.
Yeah.
It's annoying. Yeah, one that I had in mind was, and this is something that's not so rare. A lot of people do come in, but I think is overlooked. And initially getting a dog is, especially when you're getting one younger, is having kids.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like a lot of people get a dog for a personal like best friend or whatever. You know, they're moving into a new house and they want to get a dog and stuff. But then if kids were to be down the line, or even to the factor of like nieces and nephews and stuff, of like having that dog trained well enough where it doesn't have to be a worry. Like I can imagine having Sully now with Mallory being pregnant, and like I just, me personally, I just would be so on edge of like, is my dog going to be okay? Like, what can I, you know, I feel like even in those situations of like having a kid, luckily people do come here for it, but it's something that I think sometimes it can be a little bit late of a factor, you know?
Yeah, they're
And
like 7 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And like just starting training.
Right,
And
right.
it's like, it's good to do it.
Or
Better late
even
than
in the
never,
fact,
but-
right. Or even in the fact of like allowing the dogs to exhibit these habits, these bad routines and stuff for so long because you haven't needed to have that safety net because you've just managed the dog his whole life up until this point where now it's like, oh shit, this management is not going to work with this little baby or toddler rolling around or crawling or whatever, you know? So I think in that sense too, a lot of people like, again, if you're getting a dog, don't just be like, oh, well, I got to get it trained just in case I ever have kids down the line. But it's
Yeah.
something that if like,
To think
if
about.
it's considered, yeah, then.
Because I mean, when I got Cash at 19, I wasn't thinking about children one
Right.
day.
No.
Like, I did not want to have kids, you know, like that was not even like a thought in my mind. And now I'm married to a guy with a child, you know? So it's like, you have to just keep those options open. You know what I mean? Because like you said, even if it's not your direct child, it could be family's kids or,
Right.
you know, things like that. So it's good to keep that in mind.
We just had a board and train, Knox, and they loved this dog so much they got him trained because he was knocking down their kids, and they're like 1 and 2, so they're very young children. So they got him trained almost immediately when I think he was like 4 months old, and when they reunited with him in a send home, they were like, he's not jumping on us anymore. And I was like, yeah, because we trained him. And they're like, that was such a big issue when he would jump on our kids and knock them over. And he's like, he didn't mean to do that. But naturally he did. So even if
Right.
you have a playful, rambunctious dog, there's still benefits of training so you don't run into issues down the road when the dog does get bigger or is starting to hurt your children. And then you have to kind of play like the goalie all the time and make sure that everybody's happy and everybody's doing well.
Yeah. And you know what's certainly going to trigger a child to behave inappropriate with a dog? A badly behaved dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yes.
like
Yep.
if a kid is constantly getting jumped on, scratched, nipped at, their toys being stolen, their food being stolen, like, yeah, I'm probably going to hit that dog too.
Right.
If I'm a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, they don't have the wherewithal to be like, it's a dog. Like, they're being bullied by your dog.
Yeah.
Really.
They're sick of it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? And so if you don't want your child, like, it's to have a dog that is like respectful of the kid's space and is kind and all this kind of stuff, like, then in turn it's going to be much easier for the child to learn how to model that behavior back because they're not on the defensive every single time. Like, I've worked with, and you've probably seen it in the kids of those families where the dog is like out of control, they like flinch every time the dog like comes near them because they're so used
You're
to just
absolutely right.
being body slammed and all that kind of stuff. So if you expect your child to behave properly with the dog, then you need to also have the dog respecting the kid.
Yes. And like just there's different relationships between children and the adults in the house. Certainly, like another board and train we have, Doc, he like regularly humps and wrestles with their children, but he won't do it with the adults. And
Yep.
it's just that they're young boys and that they purposely wrestle with him. So he has
Yeah.
a relationship with them and he's used to that relationship. So it's just kind of rewiring and saying like, no,
Yeah.
you're not doing that.
Never let your kids rough house with
Yes,
the dog.
yeah.
Never. That is like a hard no for me. Like, there's no physical rough play
No.
with a child and a dog. Absolutely not. Once you hit like teenager, okay, maybe, you know, that's something that you could start doing, but like,
Yeah.
Or play appropriately with a toy.
yes,
or a
with a
tug.
toy. The child should not be the toy to the dog in
Like,
that interaction.
Oh, my dog
Something that the
chases
dog's gonna
my
be grabbing.
children.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And your dog
like,
shouldn't be chasing your children.
oh my gosh, no.
Right.
The chasing of the kids chasing the dog and the dog chasing the kids and like,
Something's
Oh,
gonna
it's
snap.
terrible.
If we made this
it's
this part
great.
into a
They wear
reel,
each other
yeah,
out.
People are going to be like, I can't believe that purple-haired lady said that my dog can't play with my children. She hates
Yeah.
children.
Yeah, no, I just
Well-
hate when dogs bite kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And-
that's
and I was
going to
bring up the point too of like, not to go down that rabbit hole again, but it's something where a lot of people have come here because they are expecting a kid and they're like, I don't know if I can have this dog around my kid because
I
of
don't trust it.
X, Y, and Z. Yep. And so it is, my kid's going to take priority. If we can train him, perfect, you know, but if we can't, the dog's gone.
Yes.
So
And it's management
just to
of,
make that point clear.
like,
Yes.
we can try our best, but ultimately it's the adult's responsibility in the household to navigate that situation. So I had a bulldog not too long ago. She came to training. She was just a little bit of like, you know, she had a lot going on in her life. She was trying to raise a 3-year-old and this very like energetic bulldog, and she just couldn't end up doing it. And she like messaged me and she's like, I'm giving my dog away because I can't control this anymore. And it's not a lack of what we're doing for training, but I think her son also struggled with behavioral issues. And it was that relationship where they hated each other. So she would step out of the room to like go get her son something, and the dog and son would like battle almost. And she just couldn't find herself being consistent enough to do what it took to separate that, and that's okay. Like if she decided I'm going to find another home without a child because this is causing me so much distress in my life, that's totally okay. So
Absolutely.
you can do all the training in the world, but again, if you have a bite risk dog, you have a bite risk dog at the end of the day, and you're always going to have to treat it as such. And there's never going to be like a magical point where they get along and it's rainbows and butterflies. It takes work.
Yeah. You have to decide what level of risk you feel confident you can manage, and if you can do that long term.
Right.
You know,
without
everything.
driving yourself insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like can't even imagine if I do ever have children, like what that's going to look like with the amount of dogs that I have. I remember having my nephew over, and for some reason I had Nelson out, and I just like see at the corner of my eye, my nephew's like crawling toward Nelson, and Nelson's like, and I could tell Nelson was about to snap, and I like got my hand in there, and I'm like, he is never going to be out with my nephew ever again.
Yeah.
And when my nephew comes over, all of my dogs are crated, even if they're really friendly, because again, it makes me nervous. My dogs don't have child experience. They're not around children. So I can't determine like how are they going to do. So
And he's not there to see the dogs.
Yeah.
That's one thing I always tell people. I'm like, your guests aren't coming over to see your dog. Like, put your dog away.
Yes. And luckily, like the parents are really good, and the child wasn't pestering me to let the dogs out of the crate. And his mom's like, they're taking a nap right now. You're going to leave them alone.
Yep.
Yeah, because like you don't need your nephew to be the guinea pig of like, what are my dogs gonna do? I don't know.
Right.
Let's find
Can
out.
I use your child to test out what my dogs would do?
Oh man, yeah. That's what I actually just told someone today that I was working with. They were talking about how their dog is skittish with kids and stuff like that, but they don't plan on having kids, and that's like, you know, decided at this point it's not going to change. And I was like, okay, then what's the problem? Like, we'll get them neutral to being around kids. You know what I mean? Like in
public settings.
Yeah, like, but your dog doesn't need to be comfortable being touched by children.
Yeah.
That's
You
not
can
something that's...
say no. You control that.
Yeah, that's not like, because again, like you said, like using other people's kids as like a let's see what happens, like that's just not ethical. So they don't have the ability to agree to that, knowing what's happening. Like when you're talking with dogs, like dealing with dogs that have like human aggression issues or whatever, like you can ask an adult friend like, hey, can you come over and help me practice like door drills with my dog who doesn't like people coming in, and they can like properly consent to that and the risk and the danger involved because they're an adult.
Yeah.
But you can't be like, can you bring your kids over and have them run around my backyard and see what happens? Like, that's when you're dealing with like dogs that don't like kids. It's so there's more ethics, I think, that you need to consider in those issues.
And if you're like, oh, they just have a normal brother sister relationship, no,
That's weird.
yes,
That's weird.
Yeah.
like the lady I went over, ended up giving her dog away. The little boy, they had a trampoline, and he was jumping on the trampoline, and the dog would go onto the trampoline and try to bite his feet, and she'd be like, oh, they're just normal, they're playing. And I was like, absolutely not, we're correcting this. And the dog was just like so fixated, and then when the little boy got off the trampoline, all that energy went to go and like chasing him, and she was like, oh, they're so cute together. I was like, this is a problem.
That's very, your child is prey right now. That's what's happening. That's really scary. Yeah, kind of like what you had said earlier, Seamus. I have a lot of clients where I usually towards the end of our sessions, like if it's like a couple or something like that, I will respectfully try to like bring it up. I'll be like, it is none of my business, and you don't have to divulge any information to me you don't want to, but I will leave it open to you that if you guys are ever planning on having children or, you know, whatever that situation might be, I'm more than happy to go over how this training would apply in that type of setting.
Yeah.
So down the road, you feel more confident or, you know, whatever. And I found like, obviously that's a very touchy subject at times to bring up with people. So I try to be very like respectful about it. But I've had tons of clients, once you kind of open that door, be like, whoa, I didn't even think about that. We do want to have kids in like a year or two, whatever it is. And then I'll usually, one of the questions I'll ask them then is like, what do you think in your current routine and like the way you live with your dog, if you put a baby in that, what isn't going to work anymore? And usually it's like, oh man, I don't think I want them on the furniture anymore. I don't think I want them sleeping in bed anymore. I don't think, you know, it's like a whole list. And I'm like, then those are things you should change now so that it's not like a baby comes and we're changing our entire lifestyle and routine with the dog at the same time. Like change the stuff with the dog when you have the time and energy to enforce it and work on it. So then by the time the baby comes, then you already have that routine like instilled and it's so much easier.
Yeah.
And you're not dealing with being a new parent and trying to train a dog that's not listening to you. And then you get frustrated and then you give up. And then the dog is adding to this wonderful time where you're supposed to like be enjoying and getting used to being a parent. And you're super resentful of your dog now.
Yeah.
Like
I've seen so many videos of parents, like new moms being like, I hate my dog.
Yeah.
Like I've never hated my dog more than since I became like a new parent.
Because you're like a woman, especially like biologically, you're designing to care for your child. So you get like really defensive.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing your dog differently, which is always what I'm worried about with my dogs because they are my babies right now. And I'm like, I don't want to view you differently, but I know that I will.
Yeah. You will. Because I mean, how you feel about your dog, despite what people on the internet say, will never compare to how you should feel about your child. You know what I mean? Like it's like a whole different thing.
It's just atrocious if you don't feel that way.
I know.
You know the word atrocious is used in your
Like
comments
imagine
so much.
Imagine Seamus, they have their baby and he comes to work and he goes, yeah, I mean, I love him about as much as Sully.
Or you're like, I love Sully a little bit more.
A little bit more.
The baby started crying, so we put it in the crate because it was bothering Sully.
Just threw
Sully
Simon
was
in there.
upset, you know?
You would get like
Wild.
child protective services coming to your house.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'd call him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be like, this guy, check him
Come
out.
try to take my
Little
dog,
weird.
see what happens.
You'll leave
We
the
don't call
property
the
with
police
holes
here.
in ya. Oh my gosh. So other things you might not think about with dog training
Yeah.
is I recently, this is horrible and very sad, but for some reason my TikTok For You page is sending me like a barrage of like tragic stories relating to dogs.
Love that.
But the most recent theme is like people that have ended up dying while trying to like rescue or save their dogs due to, again, as respectfully as I can say this, very avoidable problems and situations, like the two where this one dog had gotten away from her on like a hike or something and was chasing bunnies and just wouldn't listen. And the girl was like chasing after her dog and she literally like slipped and fell off the side of the cliff and died. I can't even imagine like how tragic that would be. And then another one was like a man who his dog ran out onto a lake that was covered in ice and broke through the ice. And then he went out to try to save his dog and they both ended up passing.
So sad.
Like very tragic situations like that. And I don't want to use those really horrible emotional things as like a talking point for, you know, our opinions, but more so to highlight that like training your dog could really be pivotal in really scary moments like that. Where
Dog training could save your life.
yeah, not only just your dog's life, but your life potentially. Because I know I can feel probably what those people were feeling in that moment of like the pure panic of like not wanting to lose your dog, which
They're
would
not
drive
putting
you
their life.
yeah. Yeah, which would drive you to do like crazy things, you know, the same way maybe a parent would do for like their child.
Yep.
But unfortunately, like a dog doesn't have logic. It doesn't have the ability to look at a situation and be like, wow, this is a dangerous hike we're on. I shouldn't be chasing bunnies right now. Like they don't understand that stuff.
Yeah.
And so the moments that it takes you to teach them a proper recall and all of those training skills could really come in handy for moments like that.
A good recall is like worth its weight in gold. And if you don't train your dog anything else, at least train your dog to come back to you in all situations.
Yeah.
Like I have severe childhood trauma from my dogs like would escape our yard all of the time. Like growing up, they knew our house. They knew which home they'd bring the dogs back to. We'd have a voicemail mailbox that was full and be like, hey, we have your dog.
You were that neighbor that it's like,
Yes.
why can't they keep their fucking dogs in their yard?
Yes.
That was me as well.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
All the time. And like we'd chase after them. And like as a child, like 9-year-old child, I'm chasing the dogs into traffic and like,
Yeah.
where was my mom?
My dog was just too fast. If it was like the
Yeah.
door was even like an inch open,
Yes.
he would go out and he would be gone. We lived right by the metro parks. And so we would just be like, oh, Mitchum's out. And like, all right,
He'll come back.
Yep, leave a bowl of food out for him. He'll be back tomorrow morning. Like,
I had like
wake up to go to school, and he'd just be waiting out front for us.
like a whole homeward bound moment. Like my German short hair pointer that I was training, she was off leash, and then my mom was walking her dog through, and her dog pulled out of the collar and took off. So my dog took off with my mom's dog, and I was like 14 at the time, and we could not get them back. And then like 5 hours later, my mom's dog comes trotting down the street. Hey guys, I'm home. My dog's nowhere to be found.
Shit.
So it was like days and posters, and it was like this horrible feeling like, where is she? Looked for her, and then she ended up crawling her way home and crawling her way under our fence and coming up our stairs and our doggy door and like just appearing at home again. But she had
Like,
from
hey,
that,
I'm hungry.
yes, from that incident, she had a permanent injury on her paw, and ever since then, this was a sporting prospect dog, and I couldn't do that anymore because she walked like this and she had to have a cast. In the rest of her life, she had that injury. We don't know what happened.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. She tussled with something.
yes. And like in her old age, like bringing that up, like it was very hard for her to stay mobile, and we had to euthanize her very, very early because of that injury.
Yeah.
She just couldn't do it anymore. It was too painful.
That's really sad. Yeah. I mean, those are all the things that like keep in mind. Even getting a new dog one day, like another dog.
Yep.
That, you know, again, maybe you tell yourself like, this is the only dog I'm going to want, you know, whatever. And so you let a lot of things slide, and then suddenly you want a new dog, and you have a dog who's a brat, who doesn't want to share space, who doesn't want to share you, who doesn't want to share, you know, and now you're trying to like retrain all of these bratty behaviors out of the dog just so you can enjoy a new puppy, and instead it's just a nightmare.
Right.
So,
Yep. Yeah, it was a client I worked with yesterday, did their in-home, and she had said that they had this dog, and then when they had gotten this dog, they had their first dog there, and when the first dog passed away, that was the only dog in the house, and then when they got their new dog, that's when they started seeing like all these crazy issues and stuff of aggression and reactivity and all these things. And so it's something that it's like now, unfortunately, we have to kind of like really work on it and do kind of a hard reset, but something that exactly like that, like having that second dog and getting training then would have helped that, so that when the first dog passed away, they were alone for a little bit, they got a little cozy, you know, whatever it was. And then they got this new dog, and all this stuff was coming out, you know, you're able to curve those behaviors so much faster.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, it makes like, if you have because I kind of look at it as like, if you don't train your dog, they just over time will learn to, for the most part, adapt to your environment, your routines, your patterns, things like that. But then the moment that changes or something disrupts that, your dog literally has like nothing else consistent to fall back on at all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, you don't have a relationship in place with the dog where they understand that like you're giving them the leadership and guidance. So when their pattern, their routine, their normalcy is gone, whether that's because you have a kid, you move, a friend moves in with you for 6 months because they fall on hard times. You know what I mean? Like, there's a million different things that could happen. And then you don't have the ability to maintain consistency with your dog through the training that they know because you never did it.
Or if you meet somebody and you move in with them, like a significant other, like how often do we hear that exact scenario come up where it's always toward the guy as well? If it is a man and woman relationship. And it's like, well, my dog won't let my boyfriend get into bed with me. And ever since my boyfriend moved in, my dog is not happy. And you've allowed that.
Yeah.
And that's been festering below the surface. And then your dog's being pushed by having somebody else in their space. And then we're seeing these behaviors erupt.
Yep.
And people are like, I don't know what to do. I love sleeping with my dog in the bed. And I'm like, I hate to tell you this.
Yep. Hate to be the bearer of bad news.
You can't do it. No, what's even worse is when you get people that are like, I mean, I think it's kind of cute. It's cool. You know, he's protecting me. He's not protecting you. And also, like,
So why would he have to protect you from your significant other?
Exactly. Why do you think he needs to protect you from your boyfriend?
Right.
That's weird. Because, did Lumos like Tom when we met? No. Absolutely not. Was I gonna allow him to like be a brat because I just thought it was like hilarious and funny and cute that he was like defending me from like the guy I was no, because I'd never wanted him to see him as like a threat to my safety. That's weird.
Right.
I don't want my dog eventually, like if this is someone that I plan on being with for a long time, marrying, all this kind of stuff, like I never want to perpetuate in his mind for even a second that this person is like a threat to me, because then he's not even feeling comfortable or safe in his own house.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he's like, oh, I got to keep an eye on this person all the time. Like, that's not healthy.
And that's no way to live. Like,
And whether-
we want our dogs to feel comfortable.
Right. And whether it's like they say it or not, you know, sometimes I get the feeling that, you know, you get the situation where the dog hates the boyfriend, right? Is reactive to the boyfriend, whatever, you know. So then, of course, the boyfriend's not going to do much with the dog because there's already that kind of pushback. So then it just reinforces that, okay, yeah, this guy's never told me to do anything. He's never taken me on walks. He's never whatever, you know, like it's all mom. Everything's mom, you know, mom will tell me what to do. Mom will tell me if there's even any training in the first place, you know. But so that's one thing that like I feel like I have to constantly push is that like I get the dog doesn't like you now, but by you not doing the training and generalizing this like kind of order of respect for the household, your dog's never gonna like you. Like, but if you you push it again, he might not like you, but he will respect you. You know, like there will be just that understanding of like, listen, you don't have to roll over and get belly rubs from me, but if I tell you to go on the bed stay, you need to go on the bed stay. You know, at least that much.
Yeah.
You know, but
They have to be like coexisting, and like a relationship builds from that. Like if a dog knows that they can push and push and push, and they're getting what they want, they're getting the boyfriend to back off, they're getting the boyfriend to go sleep on the couch, the dog's like, sweet.
Or a common thing I see too is that like maybe the boyfriend is trying, and then because of the dynamic between the girl and the dog, she's like, stop. I don't know.
That
I
was
don't
me.
like stuff like that where it's like,
you're being too mean.
Like,
You're being
we
disservice.
have to enforce this stuff.
Huge on that. Like Nelson and Justin had a terrible relationship.
Yeah.
And anytime like he would push Nellie, I'd be like, stop. don't ever
Yeah.
do that to my dog again.
Yeah.
And then like over time I had to realize like, am I the problem? And I was. And I had to adjust from then. And now like Nellie and Justin have a better relationship than me and Nellie.
Yeah.
And it makes me really mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that a lot where even if they mean well, like I've seen some people where if the dog is really pushing back on something that one partner is doing, then the other person who the dog is bonded more with or listens to better will step in and say the command or
Yes.
like intervene in what they're trying to be as like helpful. But in reality, again, the dog is still like, you're not my mom.
That's a big one.
Like
You
a
know?
stepdad moving in and your stepdad is like,
Yeah.
you're
Yes.
grounded. And you're like, fuck you.
Yeah, and then if your other parent doesn't stand behind them and support what their rules are and, say that you have to respect them, then yeah, you're not going to.
Right.
But so it's kind of like when I have a dynamic like that, I always tell the other person, I'm like, as hard as it is, because if you just did it, it would happen and it would cause no stress and it would be easier. You have to just let go. And just let them deal with it and figure it out and work on it, because that's so much more beneficial to what you're trying to accomplish.
I see that a lot with grandparents as well.
Yeah.
Grandparents always, because it's always like, you go to grandma and grandpa's house, the dog gets to go and have a
Yeah.
little vacation,
Yeah.
relax or whatever, they get treats or whatever. And so it's a little bit harder for grandma and grandpa to reinforce it because it's not their actual dog,
Yeah.
but it goes along for all those dog grandparents out there, goes a long way for you to generalize the instructions
it does.
for that dog.
Yeah.
And don't let your dog like go to your parents' house and be an asshole. Like I did a follow up and she took the dog for her parents to watch and she was like, they asked me if the dog had even been trained and if I wasted my money with training because his behavior was so bad. And I was like, well, did you hand him the e-collar? She's like, no. And I was like, you need to go over some things with him.
Yeah.
Like the dog doesn't have to jump through hoops, but if the behavior is that bad that they're questioning if the dog has been trained, it's accountability.
Yeah.
And then dog realizes, oh, grandma's not going to hold me accountable.
Yeah.
They're not robots. We've said that. Well, I'll say it
Right.
again.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also, like, they don't have to go to your parents.
Yes.
Like, I've had so many clients where, like, just giving them the permission of, like, your dog can stay in a crate for 7 hours while you work and you don't have to drop it off at your mom's in the morning. Like, they'll be okay. And honestly, there's a lot of situations where they'll be better off if you don't do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, if your parents or the grandparents are willing to, like, enforce expectations, especially with a behavioral modification case, like, great. And they're willing to do that, awesome, that's fine. But if you're having to like get on them about things, or every time you pick your dog up you have to like really get on them because they're just crazy and wild and all over the place, and you can obviously tell that they've been barking out the window all day and they've been jumping on people and they're not listening, then maybe instead of having to argue with your parents every single time, just don't take them over there anymore. They don't have to watch your dog for you.
Yes. That's like something I came to realize within the last 2 years. I used to just have my mom drive up from Maryland if I was going to go to like a trip out of overseas and have her stay. And then I just noticed when I got back, my dog's behavior was 10 times worse. And I could say like Sunday's been on the couch all week. And then like things would be chewed up and I'm like, Mom, what the hell? And then I'm like, this is my mom. I shouldn't have asked her to come. That's big to ask somebody to come watch the dog.
Yeah.
So now I just pay somebody that then if they do mess up, I can be like, hey, I'm paying you for the service.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'd like you to adjust X, Y, and Z.
Oh, yeah. No, and that's why, like, I'm very picky about who I let watch my dogs, if anything, because I know that I'm super particular about it, and I have, like, a specific way that I, like, want things to be done or expect them to handle my animals. So I'm never going to put somebody in that position who I don't feel 100% confident is going to do well, because I don't want to have to criticize someone and then make it super awkward when we have, like, a familial relationship
Yeah.
or something.
Or like your friends will be like, oh, well, you know, I'll just
do it.
I'll just do it. And you're like,
No.
no, I don't want to hate you.
Which you should feel really good that I let you watch Snoop
Yeah.
with what I
Yeah.
just said.
Yeah. When I'm watching Snoop, I am like Mama Bear. Like I'm crazy. I won't let Justin use the front door whenever I'm watching someone else's dogs, for the sheer fact that if he like takes his time and then dog bolts out the door,
Yeah.
he has to use the side door. And the side door has 2 doors, so
That's
in my
There you go.
mind, it's
Yep.
better.
It is better.
Absolutely.
No, and
Better
that's
safe
why I
than
trust
sorry.
you with Snoop, because I know that you're like on it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'll get there one day.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
oh, Snoopy, I miss him, and he's right out there.
He's a perfect little house guest.
He is. I'm glad you enjoy having him. Anything else, guys? Any other things you can think of?
You know, train your dog for safety.
If we could make a condensed
A takeaway.
list of like, what do we think your dog should absolutely be able to know and tolerate to likely be able to overcome like most life changes or obstacles or things like that, what would you guys put on that list?
Crate training.
Yes.
And generalizing the crate from if you're going to different homes, different places, traveling, and a recall. Like getting that really solid recall, and if you do nothing else, but for obedience wise, you do crate and then recall, and then start to correct any barking or inappropriate behaviors. Like you absolutely need to be able to lead your dog to say, you're not treating this person like that.
Yeah.
I would say, like, yeah, the whole appropriate greeting or just tolerance of people, you know, whether that's super excitement, jumping and barking and getting zoomies and stuff and knocking people over, to being fear reactive and nipping and lunging at people just because they're coming in your house. You know, I would say that has to be probably one of my top reasons, because that just goes with everything encompassing, you know, whether you're in public or inside your house or at the vet or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say grooming and handling. Being able to successfully go to the vet,
Muzzle
go to
training.
the groomer, muzzle training, potentially, all of that good stuff. So really, I would say, like, obviously training-wise, crate training and recall. Those, I mean, if you only taught your dog those 2 things, you're golden.
Yep.
You can deal with anything else.
Yep.
Temperament and like behavior wise would be like, I think I could summarize what you both said there at the end of like neutrality,
Yeah.
like neutral exposure to a lot of different things and their ability to just be calm, cool, and collected and neutral to it
Yep.
and respond appropriately. And then like handling stuff of like grooming and vet stuff. Truly, I think those are probably like the big 5.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Crate training, recall, neutrality, like environmental neutrality, grooming and handling.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean like your dog has to be calm per se. You know, I think it's just, again, the neutrality of like being able to respond appropriate to very high peak stimulating things, you know, like, you know, we get the dogs that are whining or kind of moving around if they're on the bed or down or something, adjusting because they're uncomfortable or excited, whatever, you know, but it's the understanding of like, this is the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, like how to settle.
Yes.
Yes.
So many
Settling
dogs
is
don't know how to
huge.
settle and just like be literally. And so crate training, we've talked about how to do crate training.
Yeah.
Maybe it'd be interesting. Maybe the next podcast we'll go into those 5 on like how to do it.
Yeah. That'd be
Like
cool.
a cliff notes and have those 5 important life skills with your dog
Yes.
and how to do it.
The top 5.
Cliff
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah. That would probably be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Be helpful.
Mm-hmm. That'd be cool.
Because those skills will get you really far. Like all of my dogs know those skills, and I'm really happy with
Yeah.
navigating my life with them. And it's supposed to be an enjoyable experience to own a dog, and you're not supposed to be in tears and crying and resenting your dog. You're supposed to enjoy what little time you do have with them.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you
Exactly.
do that?
But yeah, what would you guys say are your big like priorities or what you think a dog should know to be successful in life?
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to hear that.
Let us know in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. See you next
Yeah,
time.
brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
See ya.